Hello, everyone. It's Francis Widdowson here. This is the second video in a four-part series about what needs to happen if we are going to be able to restore Canadian democracy. It's possible that the battle is already lost and we are heading into an authoritarian period, but we need to fight now and fight hard if we're going to be able to stop this from happening. And what I talked about in the last video was the issue of honesty and our universities. And our universities are not being honest. They're doing a whole bunch of symbolic gestures and virtue signaling, and it is preventing us from understanding very, very important issues. One of the most significant in Canada being the claim that was made by the Kamloops Indian Band that the remains of 215 children had been found at the former Kamloops Indian Residential School. And people are saying now, oh, what does it matter? It's just a minor detail. It's not a minor detail at all. First of all, it is about the truth and getting to the truth, and the fact that we're being blocked from doing this at any turn gives you an understanding of how significant it is. Secondly, it's very important in terms of how we understand Canadian history, because the 215 claim was used to support the view that Canada was a genocidal country. And this was very demoralizing for many people in Canada and has resulted in an inability to push back against the various demands that neo-tribal elites and the Aboriginal industry are making on the system, which are very destructive. And this isn't about trying to address the conditions of marginalized Aboriginal people. Those conditions are being used as a tool to be able to push forward other interests and agendas. So we need to have honesty and the pursuit of truth to be able to figure this out, and that is not happening because of all the interests that are seriously threatened by being able to discuss this issue openly and honestly. Which brings me to the second issue that I'm going to be doing this video about, which is number 2, transparency. And this is very important right now because I guess it was about a week ago, we heard that Blacklock's reporter, the Information Commissioner, Carolyn Maynard, had ordered the government to release 576 pages of documents pertaining to the excavations that were supposed to have been done by the Kamloops Indian Band between 2021 to 2023. Initially, the government declared that these records were sealed because it claimed that this matter was confidential, which makes no sense at all, because it was the Kamloops Indian Band that announced in May 2021 to the world that the remains of 215 children had been found. So that issue is already a public issue that needs to be understood. And for now, the government to be saying that this is a confidential matter is ridiculous. And fortunately, Carolyn Maynard, the Privacy Commissioner, the Information Commissioner, saw through the government's attempts to prevent itself from being held accountable, and so she's ordered the release of those documents. I've provided a link in this description so you can go and take a look at the 283 pages. You can take a look at Carolyn Maynard's order. You can take a look at that video on whether or not what the Kamloops Band has done would be considered fraud or not. The important thing that needs to happen is Carolyn Maynard has said that these documents must be released within 36 days of January 13th. That's when she made her order. So we're looking at almost the end of February. So almost the end of February, when those documents are going to be coming available. And the question is, first of all, will they be released, or will there be more obfuscation from the government's position? That's possible. I don't know the ins and outs of privacy legislation. Often you can have appeal processes, but Carolyn Maynard tells us that the government has agreed that they will release the documents. The next question is the redactions. Those documents should not have any redactions. I don't understand how they can have so many redactions, especially on the amounts of money that have been allocated. You know, what did that $12.1 million get allocated to? We don't really have a good sense of that now because of all the redactions that existed. And as I mentioned, the issue is public. It's a public one. Now, maybe because it's an Aboriginal band, they've got to redact names and so on. That's possible because they're not a governmental entity. They're government funded, but they're not an actual government entity. But in terms of all the discussions about when they were going to do the excavations, what kinds of assistance that they needed, all the kinds of interactions that are going to be quite extensive because they're going to be in 576 pages, that's going to be very, very important to understand what that is for transparency. And transparency is very, very important in democracies, because if there is no openness in terms of seeing what it is that the government is doing, there's really no way of holding the government to account. Which brings me to point number 3, which I'm going to be doing the third video on, which is on accountability. So transparency is important, but accountability is also very important. And accountability needs to kick in now to make sure that we get robust documents that the government is going to provide. And how is that going to happen? How is accountability going to exist? In our Westminster system, which comes from Great Britain, we have built-in processes to ensure government accountability, which is question period. And what I'm going to talk about in the next video is what the official opposition, which is the Conservative Party in Canada, what this official opposition needs to be doing to ensure that we have openness and honesty in the discussion of the false claim that was made about the remains of 215 children being confirmed at the former Kamloops Indian Residential School. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll be doing the video on accountability shortly.